Welcome back to the channel, guys. Here today on the bench we have this vintage, I believe 1972 UAW branded watch. It's actually Vantage branded with the UAW logo. I bought this at a local thrift store, well, vintage flea market for about $5. As you can see, the glass is missing, the dial's free spinning, the hands move, but you can't wind it. And when I shake it, the second hand just barely moves. Not as much as we'd like to see. Let's go ahead and get this case back off here and see what we've got. Yeah, so we've got a gasket and a screw down back. That's good. Metal movement ring. Let's blow some air, and so the balance seems to be working okay. And if you can see why we don't have any wind, the winding pinion has fell out at some point. Not sure how that happens. Maybe somebody was in here messing with it. So let's go ahead and get the stem out and drop this movement out of this case and check the case out. Okay. So there's quite a bit of corrosion on the back of this. And here you can see that. Between these lugs though, that is not corrosion. Okay. So I'm going to put this in the ultrasonic cleaner later and not deal with that. I don't want to scratch that stuff and put it all over my desktop. So go ahead and set this winding pinion off to the side and get these hands out of here. So I use this little plastic piece so I don't scratch the dial. I've got these high polished Bergeon hand removers. Yes, this method works awesome for not scratching. There's no dial feet. Maybe there were at some point, but there's not any dial feet on it. That's why the dial was free spinning. Here we're taking the hour wheel off, and we're going to use these puller tools to pull this cannon pinion off. Sorry about that. Okay, so this intermediate wheel has this little bridge, and we're going to take this screw out. And this screw is tiny. I mean tiny. I'll show you here under the microscope how small this screw is. Just to get a reference. Check that thing out. I'm going to put my finger up next to it. So now we know what kind of scale we're working on. Let's get this out of here. Doesn't really seem to be much of a taper on this like we are used to seeing, but either way. This is the setting lever bridge coming off, or setting lever spring, setting lever retainer. I believe at this point you can just call these parts whatever you want. I have a book that tells me what they are, but then you look them up online and they're all different. So we'll just call it what we will. So this is the yoke here. We have problems with that later on. This is the ratchet wheel and the click. So I'm going to pull the click over, put the screwdriver into the ratchet wheel, and let some of the wind out. You have to be very careful doing it this way because the screwdriver can slip. So I'm going to go ahead and get the screw out and pull this ratchet wheel up out of here. And yeah, there's definitely a fingerprint on this. Yeah, that's not for me. I thought it might be. Here I'm checking the play between the bridge and the barrel arbor. And then we're going to get this crown wheel out of here. Okay, so that's the crown wheel coming out. And it's got this little spacer. So we'll be sure to put that back in later. You see that sometimes. That's not always there, but it's common. So this is the barrel bridge. And the barrel bridge screws that are coming out now. And these screws don't really want to come out. They kind of stick into the movement. So on the side of the bridge there's these little spaces where you can get a screwdriver under to try and pry it up safely. I'm trying to be careful not to bend that center wheel there, but I mean it's not actually touching it, so it should be fine. And so far this movement looks to be in great shape. Let's get this barrel out. Okay, yeah. So there's a little bit of rust at the bottom of the barrel, like around where the arbor goes, so we'll have to clean that up. Here we are taking the balance out, and the balance typically only has one screw in it. I know the last video I did, the balance had two, so you never know what you're gonna find. Yeah, so if you hear my dogs in the background, I've got four huskies, so they're pretty crazy. They howl and talk a lot. They run around, they eat, they howl, and they shed. So we're gonna get a look at this hairspring, and that hairspring looks brand new. I mean that's what we can hope for only. So awesome. So here we are taking this is the train of wheel or gear train bridge off, and let's go ahead and get these screws out of here. Yeah, sorry about the voice volume changing. I have a hard time regulating my volume. So just like the other bridges, this bridge also has the indents at the bottom so you can pry them up safely. These jewels look to be in great shape. So this is the center seconds wheel. It's got the shaft that goes through for the seconds hand to mount to. Pull all these wheels out of here quickly. This is the escape wheel. It's what interacts with the pallet fork. Here's a bridge we're going to take off, and this is for the second center wheel, not the seconds center wheel. We'll never know what that's for. This bridge is difficult to get off, and I had to go to the back and pry it up slightly so I didn't bend anything. And now I gotta take this pallet fork bridge out to get that center wheel, because that center wheel is underneath this, and it won't come out without damaging it, without taking this bridge out here. So, and like all of them before, this one has an indentation on the back side so you can pry it up. Jewels look great. Get the pallet fork out. Yeah, they look clean. No damage on them. It's good. This is the mainspring barrel, and you just push on the back side of the arbor and the lid will pop off. It's what houses the spring, the mainspring that holds all the wind for the watch. It's like where your power reserve comes from. I just take them out by hand like this, and I've been putting them back in by hand too. Here we go. The case is going in the ultrasonic cleaner. And I had some audio for this, but you're welcome. I left it out. The ultrasonic cleaner makes a horrible sound. I had to take it out because I had music playing in the background, and I didn't realize it until I started editing the video. But you'll still get to see me using this L&R master cleaning machine plus the ultrasonics running. And this is a clean solution here, and then it goes through a rinse 1 and a rinse 2, and then a heat cycle. And this is just a jewelry cleaner solution and water. So here's after all the parts have been cleaned and dried, and pulling them out. And you don't want to touch any of these parts with your fingers after they've been through that, because the oils in your skin will go to them. So the yoke is actually stuck down inside of there. I had to pull it out later on, but look, this spring got twisted while it was in there. Okay, so this is 8200, and this lubricates the inside of the barrel so the spring doesn't wear it out. And this is 8200 on my finger too, and what I'll do is I'll run the spring through my fingertip to lightly lubricate that. I didn't get the spring winding on footage, but everything I'm oiling this is with 8200. So take this lid and set it down on top of this barrel arbor, and use this little tool to press it down. And what you're looking for is that the lid is flush. You don't want it sticking up anywhere because that'll cause issues. So go ahead and get this barrel back in. And now it's just time for reassembly. This is the barrel bridge going back on. I actually end up having to take this back off because the center wheel and everything has to go in first. But I didn't re-put footage of me putting it back in, so here's how you do this. I'm just checking to make sure everything's aligned and there's no extra play here. And here's where I realize, oh, well that can't go on there first. That's got to come back off. Okay, so here I'm taking the barrel bridge back off, which I didn't screw it on, so it was fine. And we pull this barrel back out, and then also the escape wheel can't be on there. So here's the correct order. The center wheel, then the escape wheel, and then the bridge for the center wheel. And the bridge for the center wheel, it lines up on these two little pegs here, and then I kind of use the screw hole to help me line it up. And this is 90-10, lubricating that lower jewel. And you have to lubricate that now because you can't get to it later. And this wheel here goes through that bridge. And then here's the center second wheel. And that's 90-10 going on the shaft there. And here's why you couldn't lubricate that jewel before, because the center second wheel goes through there. Or you had to lubricate it before you put this in because you can't do it after. This is the gear train main bridge, and my microscope was kind of out of focus when I was doing this, so I added a second set of footage there. But here you can see I've got the screw holes lined up, and I'm pushing down and I'm inspecting to see if the pivots are in their jewel holes. And you can kind of touch the wheels a little bit to get them to help you line them up. Sometimes I find spinning it helps. So as you can see, they've all kind of dropped into place and the screw holes are lined up, so we should be good to go. Get this little piece of whatever off here. So I'm going to use this little plastic stick to hold it into place while I make sure everything's running. And the plastic stick is so the bridge doesn't come up, because the bridge will absolutely move on you. So I'll use that plastic stick until I have one of these screws in, and then the screw will hold it down just fine. That's just me setting both screws in, and then, alright, now they're tight. I'm checking to make sure everything's still rotating freely. Looks good. So now we can put the barrel back in. So I guess I did add extra footage back into here. This is, I believe that was 1300. Let me check real quick. Yep, that was 1300. Everything for these high torque, low speed areas will get that 1300. Can't forget to put this crown wheel spacer back in there. And the crown wheel on top, and a drop of 1300 where the crown wheel rides under the screw head, just to try to eliminate some wear there. And this movement's in great shape. It almost looks like, and it's got to be from the 70s, so it almost looks like maybe somebody broke the glass and put it in a drawer after wearing it for a little bit. This solution's one dip, and it won't melt shellac, at least quickly. And I use it to clean the balance and the pallet fork just because they're delicate. This is 90-10 going on the exit stone. Got a little bit too much on there. I clean it off with Rodico. And now the pallet fork's going in. And anytime I accidentally put too much oil on something, I'll use Rodico to clean it up. It kind of absorbs it or wipes it away anyway without leaving any residue. I've kind of quit oiling these jewels above the pivots on the pallet fork just because you kind of, if you read on it, you'll get different answers, but I think the standard practice is that because that's such a low movement and everything, people don't oil them. So I put some wind in the watch after getting this on here, and here I am just checking to make sure everything's moving, and also distributing that oil from the pallet fork onto the escape wheel. And here we're going in with a balance, and like I said, this watch has wind in it. And what I'm going to try to do is align that lower pivot on the balance shaft in with its pivot hole. And I'm rotating it so the impulse jewel aligns with the pallet fork as I rotate it. So everything should be aligned. So now I tap it, and it falls into place and kicks right up. And it looks like it has plenty of amplitude, which is awesome to see because that is not always the case. Okay, so here's a time grapher reading I got, and this is with just the oiling you've seen. There is no oil on any of the main gear train wheels. There's no oil on any of the pivots for the balanced capstones. None of that stuff. Okay, so, and it was running pretty good. This is 9010. I think everything you see here in this next up is 9010. I'll correct it if that's incorrect, but yeah, so all these is good oil. That one at the top right, or like the middle top of your screen, that's the pivot for the pallet fork. We won't do that. Now this here is the capstone for the balance. And this right here is a tricky operation. And you'll have two of these, one on each side. I only film one of them because it's the exact same thing on the other side. But what you want to do is get this shock protection spring out very, very carefully. This will break. This will fly across the room. It's tiny. It's microscopic. It'll stick to your fingers. And you want to dip all this stuff in one dip, let it dry, and then you'll oil it with 9010, and you want just a perfect little drop right there in the center of that capstone. And then you'll put the setting stone on top of it, press it, and then when you flip it over, it should have sucked that capstone down with a perfect circle. So we'll drop this capstone back into its setting, or the setting into the setting. The setting jewel into the jewel setting? I don't know. Either way, most of these springs, these shock protection springs, don't come out. I mean, you can take them out, but they shouldn't come out. This one is different. This one is made or meant to come out. Most of the time, if you pull that out, you've broke it. So I'll just hold pressure here to hold that into place, and then use an oiler that I cleaned to get these little springs into their home. And yeah, I'm just making sure nothing's going to come out because you do not want to lose those. Those are hard to find. Alright, so here's a regulation and time grapher that I did after everything. You know, it's all been oiled, it's all ran. I'm regulating it on video. This isn't the like live time grapher or whatever, but so we end up with what, 2 seconds a day, 0.1 milliseconds speed error, amplitude of 340. I got the lift angle set correct, the beats per hour set correct, so this watch is running great. Here's the cannon pinion going back on. That's the minute wheel going on, and it goes between the intermediate wheel and the cannon pinion for the handset. This is the hour wheel going back on, and that what I put on there is 1300. That is not 9010. This here is 9501. This is the blue grease, and that's going on the sliding clutch and the winding pinion. And that's a very viscous grease that, you know, allows these high wear parts to not wear as quickly. And this is just an intermediate wheel here. Yeah, so if I name any of these parts wrong, I've been reading the watch repair manual, and I mean, some of the names in there are different from what you see online and what other people call them and what you name them on eBay and everything. So here's the yoke, and it's difficult to get in there because it's got to go in that groove of the the sliding clutch. It's got to go under the main plate, and it's got to line up with that little pivot at the bottom. And I make a mistake here. And can you see what I did? So it's on there backwards. And if you go back and watch that little section right there, you'll see I didn't notice I did that. But this is the correct way it goes. So it was on there backwards like this. Just ignore that. It goes on there the other way. Everything else is the same. I didn't find that out until I had the watch all the way back together and went to pull it out to make sure this worked. But yeah, so make sure you get that in there the correct way. I did picture it the correct way. And then here we go. So this is the setting lever bridge going back on. This is more that 9501. And this is the minute wheel, intermediate wheel bridge. It's more like a clamp hold down. And this only takes this one screw here. This is that microscopic screw I showed you earlier. I'll hold this plate down with this plastic tool and try and get this screw started. But like I said, this thing is tiny and it's hard to even see on the microscope. So I went ahead and put some like sticky dots on the back of this dial, and we'll get that on here later. First I want to check out this case, and look at how this turned out. I'll go ahead and put some before shots in there right now. That's a pretty big difference. So here we're gonna measure this crystal measure this case for the crystal, and got a 29, and here we're at 29. This is probably the best way for me to put this in. I have that other tool in the background, but I couldn't seem to compress this crystal enough without fear I was gonna break it or scratch it. So I'll just use this spring-loaded press tool. We'll press it on there, and so we got the crystal set, and now we're just gonna rotate it and press down, make sure it's make sure it's set all the way down in that groove. And here we got the dial going back on. And before I press that down, I wanted to make sure I had it aligned. I used some sticky stuff to make sure that wasn't gonna go anywhere. Put the hand set on. This one's just the hour hand. And here's how it turned out. Let me know what you think. Looks good with that new crystal. Case is nice and cleaned up. I don't know if I'm a fan of this bracelet or not. But yeah, this is that 1972 UAW watch, and runs great. Turned out awesome. Stick around for some more videos, and thanks for watching.